So I want to welcome everybody. This is the graduation ceremony for our early stage entrepreneurship boot camp, JumpStart. And the cohort has been amazing. It's really fun. And so thank you guys so much. Can't wait to see your presentations. Quickly, I really want to thank LaunchVT and John Antonucci in particular. This is really, this collaboration has been so much more than I ever expected it to be. It's a huge success. I'm really thrilled to say that John's actually working to roll this out around the state. And I think that that is a real testament to how successful this program has been. I think that we all agree, we need, more entrepreneurs. We need to support our entrepreneurs, but in particular, we need to support our early stage entrepreneurs. If we don't have a lot of people coming up with great ideas and pushing them, we're not going to be able to have those couple companies that really grow. So I want to thank all of our sponsors. Particularly, I want to thank People's United, of course. That was they've been fantastic. But in addition, we were able to double our cohort size because of CEDO and the mayor's office, actually the mayor's prize. Through the Kauffman Foundation, we got a grant. We actually doubled the cohort size. We're actually going to have a collegiate version of JumpStart this summer, and then a version of JumpStart just for artists in the fall. So I'm very excited, to be able to expand the program in that way. In addition, I want to thank Davison Hodgkins Accountants, JH Capital, and the Vermont Community Foundation, and all of those folks. They allow us to actually do something that's really kind of rare. We pay people to start a company. And if you can't, if you can't top the, I don't know, I think that's fantastic. So I hope you'll all, come back for our next rounds of JumpStart. And the next thing I'd like to do is introduce John Antonucci, and he's going to talk about our cohort.
Hey everybody. So I'm actually going to let the cohort talk about themselves, since this was a 9-week program about developing your business, and one of the most important parts about that is figuring out how to talk about your business. So I'm going to just bring them up one at a time. They've got some slides to share with you, and they're going to give you some basic information, but I also want to let you know that they have beautiful displays over there, and if you haven't made your way over there, you have to go check it out, because this is a cohort all about makers. And so these are geniuses and artists and incredible people who have built really beautiful, wonderful things, and some of them are quite fun to play with. So definitely check out, they're going to stick around after Carin's talk, so get over there and hang out with them. And you'll realize why every Wednesday for the past 9 weeks was the best part of my week. So I just want to give you guys a quick update on where things are at with the process. So the cohort came in at the beginning, and they had an idea, a concept, most of them a prototype. But over the course of 9 weeks, they worked from everything, just figuring out when they were going to find time in their day to work on this business, whether or not now was the right time to go full in on this, all the way up through what was their product and who are they going to sell it to, and what did their customers or their users really care about. And they refined their products, they refined their business models, they decided on units of sale and cost structures and how they were going to finance and cash flow their businesses, all the way up to what's next. How are they going to grow this? What's the right scale for them? And so feel free to ask them those kinds of questions as well, because it's really exciting stuff. So it was a wonderful cohort. I'm thrilled to have met all these wonderful people, and I'm excited to see where their businesses go from here. So with that, I'm just going to get things started, and our first presenters will tell you all about their wonderful business. Here. You want a handheld mic? Arrows.
Hello, testing.
Top arrows are going to work, yeah.
I have all the power now.
All right, now if I press this button, it should go on. Waha.
Yay.
Hooray!
Thank you.
Thanks.
The floor is yours.
All right.
Cool. Go ahead.
Hey guys, we're from Querent. I'm Miss Shea. I am the lead content designer.
And I'm Amila Nuhojic. I am the lead artist on the project.
And This is Kayla.
So Kayla is remote currently, but she has been helping us with project management and bookkeeping stuff for the game and our team.
All right, so what exactly is Querent? Querent is a tabletop role-playing game that uses tarot cards instead of dice. Our actual product is Querent the Cartomancer's Tome, which is our rule/guidebook, and we're also making a custom tarot deck. So you play Querent with a series of tarot spreads that will help you with creating characters, outlining stories, and going through the campaign.
So Mish mentioned that we're working on the Cartomancer's Tome. This is a rule book that she is developing on her own, and I'm taking the content that she's creating and making it pretty.
Please.
And our second product is the Querent Tarot deck. So this is the deck that I'm building, and it's 78 cards, and I'm working very hard on them. So the process for this is I do sketches, I do the final line art, and then I bring it into Illustrator to do the coloring.
All right, so our customer that we're targeting is both beginners to role-playing and experts. Beginners will find it much more accessible. Instead of having all these dice and rules and 3 different guidebooks in order to play, we have one guidebook and our rules are very simple. Tarot makes it a much more story and narrative-based experience. Experts who are interested in their own games like Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder will be able to use our spreads as tools in their games. We're also targeting women who we find really want to get into this but find it very intimidating, but also really love the story and collaborative focus that Querent has.
So we had a Kickstarter campaign back in October. Our original goal was $2,000, and by the end of the month, we surpassed it by 820% and raised almost $17,000 with the help of 353 backers. Thank you.
We also just launched our online store, which is now open for pre-orders for both our deck and our Cartomancer's Tome. So at the beginning of this journey, we had this hefty to-do list. This was back in June. And as of today, we are just about ready for fulfillment by May.
So what we need from all of you is if you have any connections to retailers that are interested in carrying our game or to publishers who'd be interested in working with us, we'd love to hear from you. Also, if you just love playing games or love our concept, feel free to spread the word on it. We are Querent Game on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can also check out our website, querentgame.com.
Yeah, and we know this was a pretty fast presentation. If you'd like to see a demo, we're going to be demoing our personality spread later on after the presentations.
Thank you.
You're live there. Give me 1 second. I'll
Hello?
load this thing up for you. Thank you. Put the beer down.
Hi, everyone. My name is Todd Taylor, and I make toys that open up a world of play. I'm here tonight to tell you that the struggle with screen time is real. Ask any parent with young kids today, and they'll tell you how fierce the negotiations are over how much and what and when their kids get to watch shows and play games on devices. It is tough, and I tell you, I'm not winning any awards, any parenting awards myself in that moment right after I have to tell my daughter that it's time to turn off My Little Pony. So what's the modern parent to do, especially when there's studies like this one that says, you know, actually too much screen time is detrimental to their overall well-being, and there's 18 out of 19 well-being factors that are reduced when a child watches over an hour a day. What to do? So the busy working parent, they're looking for solutions, they're looking for activities, toys. Well, I think that there's a solution that goes beyond the toys on the shelf, and granted, I do want to sell toys to you all, but really the solution is bigger, and I want you to imagine for a moment, you've probably seen this. A kid gets so excited, there's a new toy, they open up the box, it's a toy they've been waiting for months, right? they play with that toy for all of 15 minutes, then all of a sudden, they lose interest in it. But if they turn their attention back to that box, that open, empty cardboard box, right? All of a sudden, that was a bad snap, sorry. All of a sudden, that box is a rocket ship or a stage for theatrical play, right? There's no instructions, there's no batteries. It doesn't matter if they're a boy or a girl, young or old, that box is full of magic, right? And I think part of that has to do with cardboard. And that's why I want to make toys out of cardboard. Specifically, I'm making cardboard marble runs. I call it Marble Mundo. Marble runs, those are those gravity-based games that you don't even realize you're learning STEM concepts in while playing, right? Made out of cardboard, so it actually invites you to add to it with whatever material you have in your recycling bin, to pull out your junk drawer and really get into it, play with it more, right? Unlike plastics or wooden toys that are out there. So it's a kit, it's a folding kit that you make blocks out of. Here's one right here tonight, and I'm very excited to actually say that I have the very first public demo available right after tonight. These are my blocks that I've been prototyping here using generators, laser cutter, and pizza boxes, Leonardo's pizza boxes to be specific. They're just the right thickness. And I think that this can help solve some of those conundrums, right, for parents. And there's a few of them. They're screen-free. They're good. They're planet-friendly because it's a recyclable material. You're learning STEM and STEAM concepts, right? Can be any gender, right? It can play with marbles. Doesn't matter. And it's cardboard, so it's affordable material, and hopefully open-ended play that they're going to take with them beyond just this one toy. So my idea right now is still very much in the prototyping stages. Again, I'm excited to have the very first public beta for you all to take a look at. I would love your feedback. And I was excited to also get some help through the Pitch It Fabric program right here at Generator. But being a part of this cohort, I've had the amazing opportunity to really start to focus in on what it's going to take to get my business going. So who am I trying to reach beyond just the parents of those small children, but also retailers and educators as well. And I've had some great starter conversations with some folks. And what is my revenue going to look like? I'm a busy, full-time working dad, and so I'm going to phase in slowly but surely, but I do hope to start with a very successful Kickstarter. Please sign up on my mailing list if you'd like to get involved with that, and then grow and hopefully distribute through larger distribution companies. I think there's also room for a subscription model, too, so I'll look into that. Here's just some of the things that I've taken away from this amazing experience with all these folks, and I do want to point out that last bullet there, specifically, where I can pay myself. That is the dream, right? And what am I looking for? Well, I'd love to have any kind of support you all might have, connections. Growing up as a child of two business owners, I know that here in Vermont, it's all about your connections and your community. So anyone that has connections to manufacturers or distributors or retailers that would like to bring in a product, I'd love to chat with you. Also looking for families that want to play test my designs, because I need to get that feedback from folks too. Educators as well. So, and again, hope to launch a Kickstarter sometime soon. Not making a firm date on that, sorry, John. But I do have this dream of bringing this toy into as many living rooms as possible, but again, also bringing the idea of DIY play to as many living rooms as possible. There's my daughter, she's turning 5 this month. Big inspiration, so thank you.
That is live for you. Ooh,
Sorry.
Gotcha.
Okay, what do I click?
Just the arrows. There we go.
All right. Hi, I'm Adriana Sape. I'm an artist and an owner of a small business called Ink with Intent. Ink with Intent is a boutique illustration and design company that offers a unique lineup of what I like to call meaningful art for meaningful days. When I first started the company 5 years ago, I focused primarily on Jewish wedding ceremonial artwork, or for those of you who know, ketubas. Since then, I have expanded into Quaker wedding certificates, secular wedding certificates, anniversary art, and a little bit of custom illustration. We sell our products direct to consumer through our website, inkwithintent.com. So I became involved in Generator earlier this year because I wanted to add a line of laser cut ketubas and other laser cut art to the lineup. And now, thanks to 4 incredibly fun months of playing with giant lasers and 9 awesome weeks in the JumpStart cohort, we are soon going to be branching out of the wedding space and launching a line of unique baby-themed artwork. I put all the baby-themed slides at the end. Sorry about that. If you're interested, I have a couple of prototypes over there, but they're essentially intended to be gifts for new parents. It's customized, personalized baby artwork. So I would like to take a moment to talk about what Ink with Intent has accomplished so far. I think that both artists, and particularly women, are discouraged from talking about finances in public spaces, so I do like to try and be as open as I can. I also think it's important for aspiring artists and entrepreneurs to know that you can actually draw for a living. It is possible. Up until this year, my company had worked with about 2,000 clients and done over $600,000 in sales. And this year, thanks to the new products that we've developed here at Generator, we're on track to work with about another 1,000 clients. My other accomplishment is that I'm adding a local employee starting this spring or summer. So if you know anyone who is into art and lasers and would want to work for me, let me know. But that being said, I'll be the first person to say that that is about 90% due to the fact that Ink with Intent entered the right market at the right time, which that's just part of our entrepreneurship. About 10% due to the fact that I like to draw pretty pictures. But I do take this company very seriously and try and grab every opportunity that comes my way. So I applied for the JumpStart program because everything I know about running a business was learned through the very painful process of trial and error. I had been wanting to branch into the baby space for a while, but it's a much, much more competitive market, and I had no idea how to actually make that happen. I can count on one hand the number of Ketuba artists I know, but how many people make baby products? Quite a few more. So during the program, I learned that a lot of my basic assumptions about how and why people buy baby gifts were wrong. And I had to spend a lot of time talking to customers, tinkering with price points and features and production methods before coming up with a product that I think actually will answer my customers' pain point of being beautiful and unique and surprising, but also, and apparently this is very important, convenient and on budget. So the plan is to have this new line ready to launch next month in April, and I just wanted to take a quick second to thank Generator and JumpStart and John and Chris and all of my fabulous cohort members for helping me figure this all out, because it's been an incredible experience and I'm very, very grateful for all that. So looking forward to the coming year. I'm very much hoping to connect with mentors who are familiar with online retailing and particularly marketing, because while I didn't have to do too much marketing for the wedding business because there just aren't that many Ketuba artists out there, it will be a different story for a baby product. So if you happen to work in that space, or if you know anyone in that space and you wouldn't mind sharing some of your hard-earned knowledge with me, I would very much like to meet you. Thank you so much.
All right, Christian, I think you're up, man. Listen to the reveal. There we go. See if that works. Sweet.
There we go. So I'm Christian, and if you don't know me personally, you might know me as the whale lantern guy. And I felt like this was a good picture just because this is sort of the first big public sort of showing of the whales that I was able to do in town. And as part of this, a few weeks before, I had gotten a square reader, just like, oh, maybe someone will want to buy a whale at our hub. And so actually, about an hour, maybe not even that long, after our hub started, I had to run inside and like sign up for Square because I'd never made an account or like done anything for that. And so it was very surprising. This is the first night that I ever felt that maybe this could be a thing, selling art. And so that was really incredible for that. But as part of that, once that happened, I realized there was a lot of other things besides making whales that I needed to figure out how to do. And so JumpStart was sort of the perfect thing at the perfect time. So I have a business name now, Whale Ball. I was able to get a lot of my ducks in a row in terms of all the organization and all the taxes and all this other stuff that I had never really done before at all. And so it's been pretty incredible to be able to get all that together. In terms of the business structure that I've been thinking about, I sell the individual whales as they are mostly. But I've also, this experience having the big event, of wanting to do lots of events and big public installations, connecting with conservation causes, things like that. So being able to figure out how to bring that in and keep that as part of the whole structure has been something important that I've been wanting to keep in, so having those two sort of paired pieces. In terms of the lamps themselves, I didn't put any scary headlines or anything on there, and we'll be hearing more about conservation from some of my other cohort members, but it's been important for me to be thinking about our complicated relationship with other species, especially in more recent years, and so keeping that in as part of the business model has also been great to hear about how other people have done that. So big thanks to the cohort, which has been awesome, and also last year's cohort, Christine and Jay and Clay. I've learned a ton from them as well. So it's been great to have them around. So sort of this, very cool to have multiple years of folks sort of around, sort of keep things going. And of course, lots of thanks to John and Chris as well for having this whole program. Going forward, things that I'm still trying to figure out. I've learned something new. It's called balloon pricing. It's when you have a big package that weighs very little for shipping. So if anyone has any expertise on shipping big, light packages, I'd love to hear how you solve that. So I'm not spending the price of a whale to get things places. And also other events. So I'd love to have the whales at more big events. So if you know events that would be great to have whales at, let me know. That would be awesome. So I think that's it. Thank you.
All right, I don't have my slides. Hi, my name is Ezra Rands. My company is Guile, and the product that I've been developing for a while now is called Bloom. And I actually have it here. This is the kind of one of the first iterations that I have of it, but it's essentially a dynamic. This one is not dynamic. This is just kind of the first idea. But it's a dynamic and interactive flower. It uses movement and interactivity to kind of come alive and make a place very vibrant. Basically what happened here, I came up with the idea. I had no idea for any sort of target market, anything. Over the course of the last 9 weeks with JumpStart, I've really kind of honed in a lot more on kind of what I want the market to be for it and how I could potentially make that feasible. So the market that I'm initially intending this for is really more of an installation art-based product. So it would be for special events, things of that nature, where people can interact with it on kind of short horizons. And it's meant to be kind of a magical experience. And that's what a lot of people are trying to create with, events. In any case, over the course of this, I talked to a lot of people to really kind of suss out what the interest is in flowers, what makes them special. And so looking at my product and then talking with a lot of people that had tons of expertise in installing, kind of creating these amazing arrangements, I realized that I really wanted to go back to the drawing board and really come up with something special. And so that's where my ask comes in. I am currently in the creating phase, which is a ton of fun because I get to try lots of different ideas. And I'm looking for people that have expertise, essentially in floral arrangements, also manufacturing of plastics, metals, and textiles, and also software and coding experts. Kind of putting it all together, kind of combining my art and engineering background, and I really want to work with a lot of other creatives to really make this thing come alive. So thank you.
Turn it on now.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Tessa Hill of Tessa Hill Sculpture. That's my glass studio in St. Albans, Vermont. Aha. I've had a home lamp working studio for about 5 years. Currently, it's located in this trailer, which is in my backyard in my flower garden. It was there I was inspired to make a realistic and durable glass bee. I turned these bees into necklaces, and they've been selling well. So I decided to use this JumpStart opportunity to develop these bee necklaces into my first wholesale line. During my phone interview for this program, Matt Flago from M&E Designs suggested I could hire out the fabrication of my glass bees, and that way I could spend my time finding big accounts and making large sales. That started this trajectory of this class. I have started stress testing each glass bee to increase my quality control. I updated my design with valuable sterling silver components. I took photography lessons and invested in equipment. I finally registered my trade name, separated business and personal finances, invested in branding and marketing tools, and I analyzed my finances over the last few years to create a realistic goal for my studio's future. Through assigned fieldwork, I learned so much talking to potential customers, and I made amazingly beneficial connections with local business mentors. The development I'm most excited about is the mission I've created for my glass bee necklace. I've always donated 10% of each bee to pollinator conservation and research. More recently, however, I've realized that my bee necklace is also useful as a catalyst for conversations about pollinator decline. Today's environmental issues loom large and can feel overwhelming. Bringing up causes during social interactions can feel really awkward. However, while wearing my necklace, I found that this conversation happened every day. It started with a compliment or a story from someone who noticed my necklace, and then I found myself mentioning pollinator conservation, and interesting banter followed. As I researched bee conservation more closely, I found these easy steps people can take to make an impact on pollinator decline in their own backyard. So I turned this information into a little card that I include with my bee necklace. I was also really excited to find some local seed companies around Vermont who are excited to partner with my design. So I'm also including wildflower seed packets with my necklace. With this multi-pronged approach to assisting in pollinator conservation, I realized that I have a company that is blossoming into a truly buzzworthy endeavor. There's your pun. At this point in my development, I'm seeking funding options to get my contract manufacturing goals rolling. So if you have ideas. I know banks are an option. I'll be looking for additional stores and galleries that are interested in partnering and carrying my design. I can't thank Generator, Launch VT, and my cohorts enough. Thank you. There it is. there was a suicide at the end. Suicide at the end.
Yeah, you can use that one. You gotta wait for me to get your slideshow up. That works. Okay. Don't worry about the time.
I'm just helping. It helps me like
Gotcha.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, there you go. Full screen. Oh wait, hold on. I guess that's good enough. It's been that kind of day. Just roll with it. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Gilbert, and my product that I'm going to tell you about today is called Robot Draws You. So, first off, how does a robot draw you? Well, we take a photo like this, and we run it through some special software. We generate a series of vector paths. And then from that, we go to a physical drawing like this. So, where did I get this idea? 2015, I was working at a company called Bond.co, and they're a SaaS organization that lets you send handwritten notes through their website or their API. I was on a planning committee for a party, and I thought, wouldn't it be really cool if instead of a photo booth, we could have the robots that these people use every day draw pictures of themselves? A couple weekends of hacking later, and I created a tool that I called FaceTrace. It stitches together a couple libraries that let you do some image manipulation and then captures the traces out of it. The party was a success. Here's a sampling of some of the images from the first night, and it worked a lot better than I thought it would, and it was really fun. So 2019 came along, and I got introduced to this JumpStart program. It's been amazing. The short version of what I got out of it was going from a vague concept that I had trouble describing to a real actionable plan for a business. So one of the first things that I did was I rewrote the software in a more modern way that cleared some of the technical debt and enabled some further features going on. And I also wrote two other pieces of software that are a little harder for me to demo. One is a back-end API that's going to enable automation to this, so I don't have to manually do everything. And the other is a way for a Raspberry Pi to control a camera to speed up that workflow. My business model is right now broken down into two ways. One is an hourly event where I'll show up, I'll do a few photos, and they can either get written at the event or I can mail them to you later. And the other is a la carte. And once my website is finished, you'll be able to go on the website, pay for them at any size you want, review the photos from events, and much more. I also, through this course, found two other products that I didn't realize I could do. One is maps, and the other is menus. So through a tablet, I can capture handwriting, and I can reproduce your menu and give you an authentic handwritten feel. And lastly, there's been a lot of creative experiments. This is a piece of software that I wrote that takes an SVG and randomly distributes colors to the rest of it. And I'd love to be able to take this creativity to the main product. So what's holding me back right now? Well, the machine itself. It's made by a company called Cricut. It's proprietary. It requires an internet connection. If you bump a cable, I have to start over. So there's a couple things that I need to fix there. But right now, my goals for the project are to reduce the amount of write time per image, to have web-enabled payments, and to not be relying on closed technology. So short term, I'm working on everything that I can do to reduce the size of the images so they can be written faster, and also make it easier so I can push a button and have something start. Also, I'm going to mention this again, but if you email your photo to weeklydraw@robotdrawsyou.com, you have a chance to win a free 11 by 17 drawing of whatever you can send me. I'm also going to have listing of events and payment for events and that stuff up there. Long term, my plan is to build my own machine that will help me overcome some of those roadblocks, and to build a pen changer so I can do multicolor work without having to babysit a machine. I also want to go big. How big? Really big, 60 by 40. So underneath all of my stuff over there, you'll see a large map that one of my cohort partners printed out for me that shows just how big I'll be able to go with some of these drawn maps. So how can you help me? Well, the thing that I need more than any investors right now is customers. So if you'd like to hire me for your event, I can do that. If you have an image you'd like reproduced and drawn, please send me an email. You are the change that's going to propel this in the future, and thank you very much.
All right, so our last cohort member, Jan, could not be here. He's on spring break. He's a UVM student. But during this program, he produced a beautiful teaser video for his now live Indiegogo campaign. So this is fresh off the whatever you call the thing that edits movies. So here we go. Oop.
Hi, I'm Jayan, the founder of Mag Bindings, and I want to revolutionize the way that you strap into your snowboard. Mag Bindings are bindings that ditch the ratchet and allow you to strap in the proprietary magnetic clasp. Our bindings are safe and durable, and we've designed them to withstand any snowboarding conditions imaginable. Mag bindings are super easy to set up and use. Just move the clips close to each other and they'll snap into place. Then close the lever to tighten the straps, and just like that, you're on your way. One of the best parts about mag bindings is they don't rely on the magnets to stay secure. Once the clips are fully engaged, the strap's tension holds them together. Unlike step-on bindings, mag bindings retain the feel of traditional straps and can be used with any boot. Additionally, our bindings can be strapped into while standing or sitting, making them perfect for riders of any skill level. As a snowboard instructor for many years, I began to notice how difficult and time-consuming it is for beginners to strap into their snowboard bindings. In 2016, I began to design and prototype my concept. Since then, I've tested countless designs, and I'm excited to announce that the mag binding is ready to bring to market. Our design is finalized, and all we need is your help to fund the tooling costs of the first batch of mag bindings. My passion for snowboarding and engineering has only grown since I thought of the concept. With my passion has come a revolutionary technology that will change snowboarding forever. Join me in revolutionizing strapping in by making it faster, easier, and more fun. Let's hit the slopes.
Okay, so I'm not going to ask for a final round of applause. I'm going to ask for you afterwards to go over and hang out with some of these awesome people and check out their products and chat them up. And they all had an ask in there, so if you can help them, please do, which is the topic of our talk tonight. And we have here with us someone who is in the jargony, ultra hokey language of our craft, what you call an entrepreneurial ecosystem builder. Which is like what you call somebody when you can't really explain what it is that you're doing. And it's also a way for you to wrap everybody in and just say, well, they're this. So conventionally speaking, he's a venture capitalist. He's a board advisor. He's the creator of Road Pitch. He is a incredible community advocate and has given enormous amounts of energy, time, and financial resources to the entrepreneurs in this state. And he's been doing it for as long as anyone else. And so I am very excited to have here with us tonight to share with you all his wisdom about connecting with people and about how to make compelling arguments to those people who can help you get your businesses off the ground. So please give me a warm welcome, or give a warm welcome to Carin Cross from Fresh Tracks Capital. So I gotta give you, you can use that thing? Yeah. Where's your beer? There, that's that if you want to use it.
Easy. How you doing? So John gives the best florid introductions of any. And you just keep like yanking my chain more every single year with some other hokey superlative. But I'm Carin Cross. I'm really happy to be here. It's really difficult to follow a group of really creative people. So I apologize to the rest of the audience. You know, they say like don't perform with dogs and children. Well, don't perform with primarily young entrepreneurs either, because so John gave me the topic of this talk, and I thought I was supposed to give the talk I gave last year, and then I looked at the title and I was like, oh shit, how to win support for the right people. But first, a commercial interruption. So we have Peak Pitch coming up, which is our signature event of the year. It's the elevator pitch on a chairlift. We pair entrepreneurs with advisors and with investors, and if Michelle's still here, even some bankers. Yeah, see, I said something nice about before you left. I said something nice, Michelle. I'm going to leave soon. Yeah. Okay. I'll hold back on the rest of it. And you go up the chairlift and you make your pitch and you ask for resources and you come on back down and do it again, and we gamify the whole thing so that we have fake money for the folks that are listening to the pitches. You ask for the fake money, you come back in. Our office manager makes bank, essentially. You total up the money, and if you're one of the top 5 fake money winners, you get to pitch off in front of the whole group. Terrific networking event. This is the 14th year. We do it because it's a way to get a whole bunch of sponsors to pay for us to ski for the day, so we're really excited about it. If you go to freshtrackscap.com, go to the events section, you'll see a page. There's a couple of links there that tell you about the event and also an Eventbrite link for you to go and sign up. Please do. It's really easy and it's accessible. We allow literally anybody to go there. You can be pitching an idea. You can be pitching an actual business. A fun event. I guarantee you will have fun. So back to the how to win support for the right people. So I was confused about this. And I got kind of backwards, and I was like, I don't know that we really want to. And then I realized, actually, if any of you need to get a hold of anybody, like, does I have some cousins in southern Vermont? And I'm pretty much sure if you need somebody, I can get you in touch with them. Clearly, that wasn't the right thing. So then I just, well, maybe the right people. It's not people on the right, it's the right people. And, you know, who else but the powerful money elite do you want? And I realized that wasn't right either, so I contacted John because I was really confused. And he gave me a new improved title, which is how to convince someone that your business is worth investing their time and money in. And that's a good thing because I actually have some understanding of how to go about doing that. So first, let's think for a minute about who you might want to convince to give you some time and some resources. I also want to point out I'm drinking water now, and I'm doing that specifically because I know I have at least one business partner in the audience, and they always worry when I drink before, drink during, and drink after an event, so I'm on water, so we're good. So mentors and advisors, which I'm sure you've heard a number of times. Does anybody know the difference between a mentor and an advisor? Anybody want to take a stab at it? It's not a joke. This is serious. Sometimes I do this and it's a joke, but this is a serious question. Money, yeah, right. You pay an advisor, and a mentor is someone who does some of the same thing for free. So it's basically, you know, if you think about it, it's a mentor is a mensch of some sort, if you're familiar with that term. Somebody is willing to give you advice, a piece of their time, steer you in the right direction, and so forth. An advisor also does that, but usually charges you something for it. Remember that you get what you pay for. So sometimes a free mentor is actually not as good as a paid advisor, and sometimes you're paying a paid advisor too much, and you really ought to ask for your money back. You know, it's one of those things. But mentors and advisors are people that you might want to convince to spend some time helping you out and to give you some resources really for your business. The other one that's not necessarily obvious to people is co-founders. And so a lot of you are solopreneurs, some of you are not, some of you have partners and co-founders already. I'm a big believer that one of the things you might want to do to advance your business if you're a solo entrepreneur is figure out whether you can persuade somebody to come in and be a co-founder along with you that has complementary skill sets and resources and networks. I think that two heads can be better than one. I think it's great to have somebody that's able to collaborate with you. It's a lot like a marriage or a long-term relationship, so you don't go into something like that lightly. But I think it can be very, very valuable if you can figure out how to do that. You also have to persuade early employees to come to work for you. That's a given. You're always selling. You're always pitching. Pitching is not necessarily asking for money. It's sometimes asking somebody to trade the security of the job they have now to come to work for your nascent, struggling startup that you think is going to be the next, pick any number of large companies in the ecosystem. So that's another person you would want to convince. Vendors, landlords, people that you would normally, or entities you would normally need to pay money to in order to get product or to get space. Sometimes you can figure out a way to convince them to give you that at a discount or free or on terms or so forth. So you would throw them in that bucket. Friends and family. Whether you ask Uncle Harry or Aunt Mildred for a loan or some money, you are going to need the support of your family. So that's significant others. It might be children. I think, Todd, you've got your daughter right in the picture with you. But I mean, the time you're spending on all the things you're doing does take away time from your child. And so there has to be a kind of buy-in there, even though she's only 5, right, in terms of doing that. So getting friends and family and convincing them that it's really the right thing for you to do to spend your nights and weekends, maybe at first, and then spend 80 hours a week for several years, pursuing some dream, is not always the easiest thing to do either. TA providers is technical assistance providers, so that can be a paid but can also be a free relationship. So that's the Small Business Development Center, and getting yourself into the JumpStart program at Generate. How do you do that? How do you make the application, do the networking, and all those kinds of things? So you guys have navigated through that, which is great. Grant-making organizations, even if you're a for-profit business, it is possible sometimes, rarely, to get some actual free money or grant money. Everybody always says, how do I get free money? And the answer is, well, there's going to be a fairly small number of you that will, but it's certainly something that is available and is possible to strive for. You might find loan funds and alternative lenders, and Michelle's gone, so all of you need to remember that I said bankers again, and I was saying it favorably. And if you see Michelle, tell her I did that. Those are all folks you can maybe persuade over time to help you out. Angel investors, venture investors, people that are going to invest in your business. So I wanted to outline kind of that wide range of possible folks that can help you out. And then what I want to do is say that, convincing somebody to put resources into your business, whatever those resources might be, is really a negotiation, right? And in all negotiations, you've got to remember the golden rule. And I'll ask here, and if you've seen me do a presentation before, you can't answer this question. But if you haven't, the golden rule, what do people think the golden rule is? Yeah, that's like the biblical, right? Do unto others, right? No. The golden rule is if you've got the gold, you get to make the rules. And basically, you substitute the word resources for the word gold, you kind of get what I'm talking about. And it's important to understand that inherently in this situation, the startup company, the early stage entrepreneur, it's always an unfair and imbalance, for the most part, negotiation. You want something from somebody who's got a precious amount of time or a precious amount of money or a precious amount of contacts, and you need to convince them through some sort of a negotiation that it's worth them giving up time, money, contacts, whatever it might be, right? And so because I like to sound academic and smarter than I am, I actually got on the web and did a little bit of research, and this is really kind of behavioral economics, and so their resources are scarce, right? I mean, time and money, no matter how wealthy somebody is, or even if they're retired, people don't necessarily get up in the morning and think, oh, good, this is the day somebody's going to ask me for money, or they're going to ask me to commit a bunch of time to help out this crazy startup, and they're going to ask me all these crazy questions, right? So very, very few people, even an angel investor who's really doing this almost as a job, even us as venture investors, where, it's really our job to help out startup companies and take meetings and figure out what to invest in and so forth. I mean, the reality is you never have enough time, you never really have enough money, and you're prioritizing and kind of making decisions. So I want you all to put yourself on the other side of the table and say, all right, if I was being asked for this, how do I feel? And so if you're trying to extract resources from someone who perceives their resources are scarce, you've got to somehow or other cut through this noise, and you've got to build trust with them, and you've got to demonstrate resilience yourself and demonstrate to them that you have resilience. And the last part's hugely important. You are competing. No matter how egalitarian the people are that you're talking to, you are competing for their time, their attention, and their money against others who want their time and their attention and their money. And so the last little bit here is we're going to kind of use that as a framework and then say, okay, how do you do that? We've outlined kind of who you want to who you might potentially be approaching, basically saying, boy, nobody really necessarily wants to do this. And even if they do, they don't have enough time and money and so forth. And you've got to kind of cut through that noise. You've got to build trust. You got to demonstrate resilience. It's really funny if you do this, which I would think it would actually make it. But if I do that, because it's up there, right? So that's what's going on. I'm clicking this and nothing's happened. I'm clicking up there. It's like, I could be a dog trainer, right? No, actually, I'm the dog is what's going on. I'm not the dog trainer. We go click. So you've got to get them focused. You've got to get the people you want focused on you. And I believe the best way to start doing that is to remember that you and your team, which would be co-founders, might be some early employees, you're really the story. And I think about this as how you present your story and how you craft your story and tell your story. And it's really what's your narrative, and how do you craft it? And so it's kind of interesting because all the businesses here tonight are relatively creative businesses, right? You've created a business out of, you haven't necessarily come at this the way some entrepreneurs do, and I'm maybe making some assumptions here that I shouldn't, but you didn't necessarily probably go, oh, let me find a really big problem and then go solve the problem, right? You were like, oh, I'm kind of creating some really cool things that I think are interesting, and then voila, some of you hit on a really interesting market, and you've kind of decided things like, hey, I can sell whale light, right? It's right. It's kind of a fascinating thing. And so there's a story there that you've got to build around what you're doing, and you've got to really present it in a way where you're telling that narrative and making it compelling and hooking them in the way you would hook in a child reading a bedtime story. I mean, it's literally, if you kind of use that as the way to think about it, that's really what you're doing. So you're cutting through the noise through some sort of differentiation. Why are me and why is my team different, and what we're doing is different than anybody else? You're going to build trust and you're going to demonstrate resilience. All right. So cutting through the noise. Now, whether you started off saying, I see a problem and I've solved it, or whether you have come up with something and now you're trying to figure out what the problem is, this is really important. You've got to figure out whether you're working it backwards or whether you're working it forward. You've got to understand what the problem is that you're solving. And you've got to understand why you're the best team to solve this particular problem, right? And that is, that can be challenging if you, and I don't ever mean to pick on any of the folks in the cohort, but imagine you're in the bead jewelry business, right? And if you think of yourself as being in the jewelry business, then there's a tremendous amount of noise there, right? Because there's, as you know, hundreds of jewelers, thousands of jewelers, and many of them are really good, right? And so saying I'm in the jewelry business and is probably not, that's not really the problem you're solving. And so I liked what I was seeing up there, and I can imagine you could weave that, you know, into a narrative and a story that makes everybody go, that's the bead jewelry making the change in the world. So that's an example. You know, why is your solution the best solution? How are you differentiated and all of those kinds of things? And this is really, again, I'm going to keep saying this is a story. And what you were all doing up here earlier, which is a very classic way to do it, you know, a slide deck and some fairly formal things. But most of you were trying to tell a story as part of that. And, you know, my advice is focus on that story tremendously, and that becomes really that kind of initial thing. So here's the problem with people have not a lot of time, resources. How do you get in front of them and get their attention? You know, how do you get a one-on-one meeting? How do you do that? And, you know, I'm kind of suggesting, particularly for creative companies, that there may be other mediums to get in front of people, you know? Imagine you did a series of podcasts telling your stories, and you sent a link to some of the people you're trying to persuade to spend some time with you to tell your story to, right? And that might be a possible way. You know, certainly I think one of the best things about Indiegogo and Kickstarter and all of those things is it's kind of forced people into this video mindset, and that's actually not a bad thing because you got only a few minutes, and you gotta tell that story in that few minutes. And so I think one great aspect to that is everybody who goes through that process has to hone things down. And then if you do something that's written, you know, it's got to be a super short executive summary. But I'm of the belief that the kind of classic way to get a hold of people is maybe we're maybe at peak networking right now, if you kind of understand the way I'm thinking about it. And I'm not sure that physically getting in front of people is going to remain or even be easy to do now, and I don't know if it's going to get any easier to do. We're closing ourselves off as human beings in kind of different ways, physically and so forth, and so I'm suggesting maybe the future holds ways to cut through the noise that are different than, hey, I'd like to meet with you. That being said, there's contact information on the front of this slide deck, and John, are you going to make this accessible to anybody? Is this John? Oh, we're recording it. It's being recorded. Okay, can we stop at about minute 2? I said shit, and I don't really want to edit that out. But anyway, my point is, if you know, we're as generous with our time as we can be. I'm always happy to talk to somebody. Feel free to email me. But I'm also suggesting there's other ways as people get busy. You might want to do that. So that is some thoughts on cutting through the noise. In terms of building trust, a warm introduction really, really helps. And so, figuring out if you know somebody that knows the person that you're trying to extract some resources from, and if that person can make you a warm introduction, it always helps kind of cut through that noise, and it always instantly starts off the relationship with at least a little tiny bit of trust. I trust that person. They've taken the time to introduce me to her. Therefore, I should pay attention to that. And so I think it's a good way to do that. And one of the great things about Vermont is there's not many of us, and we're really very close to each other. And so it's generally possible to figure this out over time. The other thing is that repetitive behavior is predictable. And so you all were up here talking tonight, and maybe some of you will come to Peak Pitch and have a chance to kind of behave in front of people again, and then you might enter Launch VT next year or whatever it is. And over time, people see a pattern of behavior, and they form they really make a decision as to whether that's somebody that they want to spend time with, help out, invest money in, and so forth. And so I can't stress enough that, you kind of are the sums of your behavior, and so it's really important to have some consistency there and to evolve as you can over time and so forth. And so in a physical setting, that is be on time, right, to some extent. And understand what the amount of time is that you have and use that kind of full amount of time, but not more, and set yourself up in that fashion. The other thing I'm really big on is that you underpromise and overdeliver. I know one of my business partners actually used that phrase in a meeting we had the other day with an entrepreneur. It's like, hey, you really should make sure you underpromise and overdeliver. And I think a lot of times people are very excited about what they're doing, and that excitement translates into massive, big ideas in which they promise that they will be able to do some things that are just categorically impossible. And so underpromise and overdeliver, I think, is a great thing to do. If you are given suggestions by the people that you're talking to, if you get a mentor and the mentor says, hey, I think you ought to try this, probably a good idea to try it, right? Because if you come back and the mentor says, hey, did you try that? And you go, no, I really thought it was a stupid idea. The mentor is probably going to say, I don't really think I'm the right person for you to be doing that. So I follow through the suggestions that you're given. Seek people out on their own ground, understand how they want to be communicated with, and you might be able to do this by networking a warm introduction in and figuring out how they want to be introduced and what kind of time they have allotted and so forth. And then the other thing is to always think, even though I said it was inherently unbalanced and you're asking for resources, if there's anything you can possibly do for that person to pay it forward, if there's anything at all, you might know something, maybe you have a background in X or Y or Z that they don't quite have, and you may be able to help them with an introduction or some thoughts or so forth. So always offer to do something. You might bake them cookies. I'm not saying that's a mandatory when you get a meeting with me. But chocolate, I like chocolate. But think about some way to certainly to pay things forward, because it helps at least balance out the negotiation in some slight way. Resilience. So one of the things that people are going to do that have, whether they have a ton of money and a ton of time, like I said, every human being is going to perceive that they don't have enough of either, and therefore there's resource scarcity. And they're going to be allocating the resource appropriately. And one of the easiest things they can do in that situation, particularly with the time situation, is push off meetings, send you to somebody else, tell you to come back in 6 months, do whatever it is, right? And they're doing that very rationally. It's human behavior. And part of demonstrating resilience is being able to continue to circle back over time, so that even if what you really want to do is be out of your garage and quit your job and be doing what you're doing, and you want to be able to do that tomorrow, realize that it might take a year or 2 years. And during that time period, as you keep circling back and demonstrating, hey, I'm still here, I still want to talk to you, I still need your help, demonstrates resilience. Like, wow, they're still at it. They're still going to try to figure this whole thing out, right? And so another thing you might do is think about obstacles you've overcome in the past and kind of relate them to what you're doing now. And also to be able to demonstrate to some extent to the people that you're asking for help from, hey, I've overcome obstacles in the past. I'm willing to wait another month for the meeting. I'm willing to do whatever it might be. And I am resilient, and I'm gonna keep coming back. Not annoyingly. I'm not saying being annoying. I'm saying demonstrate that you're in it for the long haul. The other thing you got to do is have a plan B. You got to know what you're going to do if you don't get the resources, because unfortunately, some large percentage of the time you're not going to get what you want. So what's your best alternative to a negotiated transaction between you and that other person? So that plan B. If you do get the resources, or one of those smaller percent that are able to get money or time or attention, how do you kind of husband those resources to last you over time, so that you're not squandering them all kind of right away, and then needing, more resources. So think about that. And then all this kind of comes back to that point of how committed are you and the team to what you're doing, and how can you demonstrate that resilience over time. I always think that creating a bit of urgency is not a bad thing, but you're not trying to appear frightened. And so what you want to do is you want to be able to let people know that, hey, I've got a plan, I'm working this plan, and in 3 months I'm going to need X, and in 4 months I'm going to need Y, and so forth and so on. And you're laying out these milestones and these timelines and deadlines, and you're using that as a way to gently say, I'd like you to pay attention to me within this time frame, because here's what I'm working on. You can also use this to leverage one resource together with another resource. So if somebody's like, hey, I'd be happy to spend you finally convince them that they'd be happy to spend a half a day a week trying to help you out. That could be a great opportunity to maybe get Aunt Mildred to lend you a little bit of money so you can leverage up the mentoring resources with Aunt Mildred's money to kind of get to the next level. So if you kind of think about that constant back and forth of leveraging resources together, it's a good way to think about it. And then that automatically sets up these demonstrable milestones. If I take that person's time, that expertise, and I pair it with a bit of Aunt Mildred's money and my sweat and blood and tears, what am I going to do over the next 30 days and 60 days and 90 days? And those are the milestones you're trying to achieve. And you lay that out for the person who's contributing some time and Aunt Mildred is contributing money. And this becomes demonstrable behavior, because if you use those resources to achieve those milestones, it becomes easier to get that next bit of resources, because people love to help out folks that are already showing a pathway to success, more so than they do when things don't work out. If you're talking to somebody and asking them for a question or asking them for a commitment of some sort and they're trying to put you off, it's not really impolite to ask for a decision timeline and the steps. Well, how are you going to decide whether to do this or not, and how long might it take you to do it, and who else is going to be involved in making that decision? And that's not an impolite question at all, so you want to be very clear that you understand that. And then if the answer is no, which, some large percentage of the time it's no, I don't have time, no, I don't have the money, no, I don't want to do this, whatever it is. Understand kind of how and when and if you can, I'll call it resubmit. You can come back and try again. And if you hear never ever, I will never ever do that, then respect that and move on and don't take it personally. I think what you'll find is many people will go, well, look, if you did this and this, come on back if you do that in the next 6 months. I might be more interested in what you're doing if you could prove to me X or Y or Z. And here's the big thing in kind of resource economics is there's always a opportunity cost, and you're always being traded off in one way or another. And so you want to avoid being traded off for another opportunity. And you are really trying to make whoever it is that's going to give you those resources, you're trying to make them want you more than somebody else. And so I would love to think that everybody wants to be egalitarian and they all want to help out, but the reality is all of us are pressed for our own resources, and therefore we only have so much that we're willing to give. And so I think you've got to outline your cost-benefit proposition to them. And I don't mean this on an investment return basis, but I just mean if you're asking somebody to spend a few hours a week with you, coaching you on what you're doing, then you're going to want to both promise them that you're going to be attentive and prompt, and it's going to be the high priority of your week, and all of those kinds of things. You are going to want to prove to them that the benefit of them spending time with you is full time and attention. You'll really do the things that they want, and so forth. That you're coachable and you'll learn. So think about it in that fashion. And then the other thing is, if you're sensing that the decision somebody is going to give you is a no, like no, not interested, think about how you might be able to put them through a series of incremental decisions rather than asking them for an all or nothing decision. And if you can get a small incremental decision, and that might literally be, okay, sounds like you're not super interested. Could I put some more things together and come back in a month and talk to you again? Small incremental decision. In their mind, they're thinking, do I want to spend another hour? I've already spent an hour. Do I want to spend another hour? Rather than, hey, I need you to commit to spend an hour a week with me every single week for the next year. That's what you really want. Get them there slowly and incrementally, kind of over time. And then, we all go for incentives. So incentivize as necessary to, so could that be some free product? Could that be, those are actual, kind of physical, value-driven incentives, but it also could just be pleasant demeanor. It could be, it could be just, this is going to be a fun thing. I'm a great person to spend time with. Come spend time with me, right? If you can convince somebody of that, that might be enough at the beginning to get them to make those incremental decisions that are necessary over time to then get them to commit to kind of the full thing. So anyway, that's probably not at all the talk you were thinking this was going to be, which is generally what happens when I get a topic. But I always do Stump the Chump, so it's Q&A. Q&A time. Thank you for your time and attention. And I'm happy. And I can't see the audience very well, so I'm not going to be able to call on people. John's got microphones. Well, I could step out of well, then I wouldn't have the microphone, so I can't.
So if you do have a question, just raise your hand and I'll bring you the mic.
So could you talk a little bit about when you're evaluating a company, how important is the co-founder or the founder's passion, expertise? Because even in the early stages when, you're hiring the team, right? They're coming to work for you because they believe in you. So how important is it for me to make you believe that, man, I'm the expert and I can do this because I'm so passionate about it?
Yeah, it's really important. I mean, in the hierarchy of what we look at, by the way, we're investing money, and we're investing money in high growth companies. So this isn't maybe the way every single person on my list of, like all of those people may not think exactly the same way, but in terms of what we do, it really is all about the people. I mean, you're spending most of your time at the beginning trying to figure out whether you believe they can do it, that they want to do it, that they'll dedicate themselves to doing it. Do they have the expertise? If they don't have the expertise, do they know it, and are they looking for further resources and expertise? So it's, at the beginning, and in the early stages, it's very much people. So yeah, that's a great question. I think it's really important. And that may be true for some of the other folks on this. Like you're trying to get the landlord to give you 6 months of free rent or persuade Sam to give you a 6-month membership if he said, is Sam still here? Or can I? Yeah, you'll do it, right? Yeah. So it's going to be about the people, I think, to convince that. Yeah. Thanks. Other questions? Diane, I can see you, but there's a microphone coming.
What advice would you give women who might feel a little less comfortable reaching out to typically older white males for access to capital?
Diane and I have a long history, so she's able to know just how to get me. It's a great question. No, it's a really great question. So part of my belief that there are other mediums that you can reach people through has a lot to do with some of these biases that might, truly exist, and also there's a lot of perception there. So I think I think if there's worry about, if there's some intimidation factor that, you know, a podcast or a video or whatever can certainly go a long way. I think the warm introduction can also go a long way, and makes sense. I think the other thing you can do, and I'm going to use the word stalking, which is not maybe the right word to use, but it is kind of what you end up doing. But I mean, you know, people come to events like this because there may be somebody here that they want to be able to kind of accidentally have a conversation with. And we have all kinds of events in the ecosystem that allow for that to happen. That's not a bad approach. And again, that demonstrates kind of consistency and continued behavior. You know, come up, say hi, you know, give a business card, you know, chat about what you're doing, you know, come to the next event, run into the same person, do it again. I think that can help so that then you're able, that incremental ask at that point is, hey, could I buy you a cup of coffee sometime and tell you a story that I want to tell you about something I'm working on? Okay, that's all kind of less threatening maybe. I don't know. Does that help? Is that what you wanted to hear? Yeah, okay, all right. Cool. There was a questions over.
Hi, it's me, Sam, over here. You can't find me still. I just wanted to add on to that, too.
Yes.
Another thing that is really helpful is contacting people that they've worked with before. So if it's Fresh Tracks, you could go to their portfolio page and see who they've invested in and contact some of the founders there to get sort of a reference on whoever it is you're meeting with. We have a lot of folks that come to Visa and they say, oh, I heard about you guys through this company that you've invested in. They recommended you. So getting a sort of referral from them, like Fresh Tracks might get, you know, a recommendation for you as well, but do it the other way around as well. That's really helpful.
Yeah, it's a great point. Thanks.
My question is, what was the smallest company Fresh Tracks has invested in?
Wow. Well, we have over time invested in some real pure startups with just a handful of employees. I don't know that we've ever, hey, Lee, help me out here if I say something that's complete. Yeah, which is really a founder and some contractors, right? Essentially. I don't think we've ever invested in a solo entrepreneur, though, right? Is that a true statement, do you think?
Woo might do that.
Yeah, but even then, there's other people involved. Yeah, contractors around. So pretty small. But I think solo entrepreneurs always have the most difficult struggle with any kind of resources, whether it's investment or because everybody goes, if whatever I spend time and effort or money with that person, it's all residing in that person. And if something happens to that person, like they change their mind, right, and don't want to do it anymore, then I've wasted all this kind of time and effort. I think people think that. And so that's why at least a small team can be really helpful, you know.
Destruction. Hello.
Wait a minute. I can see the microphone when you hold it up. It's great. It's like, you know, it's like people got lighters, you know, a little breath. Go ahead.
You were talking about different venues for reaching people. Time's precious. I think it was cutting through the noise and mentioned podcast videos. And I think when you're mentioning videos, it was kind of refining your message, getting concise a little bit. But do you see, is the podcast and some of those other venues, is that really just a shotgun blast of getting the word out there to see who might stumble upon it, or are there certain avenues that you see?
I mean, I think you'd email a link, or you'd get the actual link. It wouldn't be. I'm not suggesting that you just kind of put it out there without some targeted marketing. But if somebody said, "Hey, I've got a 15-minute audio, kind of podcast. Here's the link. I'd really, it's kind of my pitch. Can you spend time?" I know for me, I can at least multitask when I'm listening to something. Maybe I can listen to it in the car. Maybe I can listen to it when I'm doing some other email. And that might be a super easy way for me and others like me to be able to at least have that initial screen in our mind as opposed to, hey, I really need, half an hour of your time. Right. It's like, oh boy. And then if you send a written, so a lot of times what happens is, well, do you have a pitch deck? Well, even a pitch deck, I can't multitask with, right? I can't, this isn't San Francisco. I don't have a driverless car and a computer, and I'm flipping through pitch decks on the way to my fancy Sand Hill Road office, right? So, I'm like fighting through the snow and whatever. So I'm not going to do that. But the audio thing could work. So I'm suggesting that. It's actually sort of it's a subliminal suggestion I'm making for the first time tonight, because I'm trying to see like what's going to happen. Are people going to do audio things, which I think would be great. It would really work for me. Lee thinks I'm nuts. So I didn't rehearse any of this stuff with my partners, because they're always like, oh, for Christ's sakes, you're not going to. What are you doing? But anyway, yeah, thanks.
Good clarification. Thanks.
So I'm just wondering if you're
Lindsay.
Yeah.
Hi. Hey, did you know Daniel and Eric are having a baby?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, I thought I'd tell you in public. I'm gonna be a grandfather.
When are they when is it due?
June.
June. Yeah. So they know whether it's boy or girl?
Boy, actually, yeah. Oh. Yeah. Anything else?
Daniel
I don't know
Jr.?
The name. I'm lobbying for a name, but I don't.
Cairn or Daniel Jr. Start right off.
Well, I'll tell you after. He said he would take it under advisement. Daniel. Means it's not happening. But
I guess that's actually a really good intro to my question, because if here we are, you're Cairn, you're funny, you're witty, and you have a super concise, story pitch, and I'm just wondering, like, where were your horror pitch stories that you had? And did you have any? Like, let's be a little bit. I'm just saying, because it's really
like things that didn't work.
Yeah,
in my life?
That moment, because I can think of all of us who might be a little bit terrified. I think there were some questions in going. Well, I guess my question's two-part.
Yeah.
One,
I asked like 5 women to marry me, and only 2 did. So, I mean, it gives you some idea how good I am at pitching. But yeah,
different sort of pitch. But I guess my first part of the question is how do you do that when you don't feel witty or you don't feel concise and funny, and where's your horror story with that? And then secondarily, which is the other kind of part of this, is there too many mentors that you can have? Because at a certain point, if you're lean, you're trying to make all of those goal benchmarks that you're trying to set up and show that you're that you have that sort of diligence and you're building trust. But if you're not making them because you're just struggling with all the loose ends of your company as you're building, like, is that something to consider too?
Yeah, so let me answer that question first. I'm glad you brought it up. I was going to actually fit something like that in the presentation, but I was trying to keep it concise. So I'm glad you brought it up. I think one of the toughest jobs for an entrepreneur is that they have to reconcile conflicting information that they are going to get from entrepreneurs and advisors. One entrepreneur says, or one advisor says, you need to sell through a wholesale channel and get distributors. And the other says, you need to go direct to consumer. And you're like, oh crap, I don't have time and effort to do both. What am I going to do, right? And you could ask a third and a fourth, but I don't know that democracy makes sense in that case. So part of that job, and unfortunately, I don't know that there's any way you can learn that piece except by over time and effort. You get better at it over time. Like, that's really dumb advice. I'm going to smile and nod and be witty, and I am going to ignore it, and maybe I don't want that person as a mentor anymore. It's like not going to work. But at first, you're going to try to run that to the ground. It's going to be really, really difficult. So that's that part. I don't think you have to be funny and witty to tell a good story. I think you can tell a really good story if you're sincere and sober, right? And that's why I'm drinking water. And but I mean, there is no, I mean, people will tell heartbreaking stories. I've seen this as part of a pitch that actually are pretty good. It's like, here's all these really tragic things that happened, which led me to realize this problem. And then because I've realized this problem, I now have a solution, right? And there's nothing necessarily funny or witty about that, but there's a great hook. And as much as I'm not a huge fan of Shark Tank, in which they, and all those shows do 3 hours of filming or 4 hours of filming, and they edit it down to a particular storyline. you certainly see in a program like that people who are, tripping over themselves in pitching, or they try to be funny and they're not, or they tell some really tragic story and everybody goes, oh my God, I don't know how to react emotionally to that, so I'm going to back up. So not all of that stuff works, but I just want to say I don't think you have to be, you don't have to be a talk show host to, make a pitch line. I do think, though, that particularly the kind of amount of video that's out there and, just the proliferation of video content, I do believe that we all expect a higher level of verbal discourse than we've ever expected. That's, at least this is me, as Diane points out, an old white guy. It's me in kind of a long history. Years ago, in high school, 40 years ago, there weren't a lot of people who spoke very well, right? And people didn't feel comfortable, and there was 3 TV stations and actors did acting, and today, anybody with a cell phone camera can knock off and produce this incredible content. And so I think the whole game has been raised, and that may make it difficult for someone who's socially awkward or doesn't feel comfortable speaking. And again, I would stress, well, is there another way to do the initial stuff through something that isn't pointing out those? And it could be maybe more rehearsed. So I don't know. Well, sorry, I'm rambling. Long answer, but really interesting questions. Thanks.
Hi. My question is in regards to intellectual property in this whole process, and how seemingly you cast a wide net in terms of networking and conversations you have and potential negotiations and conversations you'd have regarding funding. I also assume that many of us think we have the next best idea and we don't want to see it being stolen in worst case scenario, right? So are NDAs a thing in this world? Is it common? Do they often get rejected and it's not, some people won't negotiate with those in place? How do you protect your intellectual property?
So the first thing, just to, and I'm by the way, I'm not an intellectual property expert, or I don't consider myself to be. So I always say if somebody's got something that's patentable or trademarkable or whatever, they should be making sure that they're getting the right legal advice and doing things correctly. If what you do have is actually so technical that it can be protected, then I think figuring out a way to protect that first before you're standing in front of a room or sending somebody a video pitch or doing anything that allows them to see kind of the novelty really is important. If it is, so imagine that I'll make a crazy example up just to maybe try to reinforce what I'm saying. If you actually had invented the algorithms and hardware to create a teleporter, you were absolutely convinced that you did that, right? But it was going to take you a long time to kind of get all that documented and patented and do those kinds of things. And you knew that was going to also take quite a bit of money to bring it to market. You may need to go out and start talking to people about that. I actually think, again, this is a tortured example, but if you said, hey, I have figured out a way to make a teleporter. Now, first of all, people are going to think you're a little nuts, but nothing you say there is really revealing what you've actually done to make you believe that you have that kind of property. And so it is possible to make a pitch or have a conversation in which you say, hey, I've solved this particular problem here. I don't want to tell you exactly how I've solved that, but here's what I've done. Here are the people that I'm working with who are legitimate, hopefully, and they've been helping me. And you can pique somebody's interest, I think, in that. But if you've truly got something that is patentable and you haven't patented it yet, and again, I'm not an intellectual property attorney, but you're standing up in front of a room and showing them the drawing and doing all the other stuff, that is a problem. Now, to the NDA piece, the answer to that is it depends. Some of the folks on this list would fairly easily sign some sort of an NDA. and others won't. And the ones who won't, like, we don't sign an NDA simply because, and what we tell people is, look, we're not in the business of stealing ideas, and we've been in business for 20 years, and you can ask around, and I don't think anybody is going to say that we've taken their idea and run with it, because we haven't. And if anybody does, I'd like to know who it was, because I'd like to understand, why they think that. So most, like, venture investors and so forth won't do that simply because they see so many things that it would be almost impossible if you signed an NDA with someone and then 2 years later you invested in something similar. And they'd be like, oh, you were using X or Y or Z. And it's like, no, it's really different. But others will. And so the trick is, you need to know, before you ask for an NDA, you need to know whether that type of, the person you're trying to convince, whether they would normally sign an NDA, whether it's standard practice. And if it's standard practice for them, like a landlord might, I don't know, I'm making this up, but they might, then fine, ask for it. A venture investor probably won't. So if you ask for that, you kind of appear like a rookie. And a non-rookie would say, hey, I know you're not going to sign an NDA, so I'm not going to tell you anything that's really proprietary, but I'm going to talk around this in some fashion. If you have something that is easily repeatable, and it's not patentable, then it's almost impossible to protect that in any fashion, and you have to do enough diligence on the people you're pitching to understand whether they're the type of people who will grab your idea and run with it. And then just don't pitch to people like that. It's a hard thing to figure out, but you have to do that. Because there's really no other way to protect, I don't think, in that situation. So.
All right. So Cairn has to walk all the way across the room to be able to leave. So there's a good chance you can catch him if you have further questions. People have pointed out your age, so I'm not sure how quickly you're going to be able to leave the building.
It's getting it's past my bedtime, if that's what you're.
But thank you all for coming, and please talk up the cohort if you haven't already checked out their displays over here. And we'll see you at next year's JumpStart Lecture Series. Take care.